In the world of fame and flashing cameras, some stories are too beautiful and too painful to ever be fully told. Between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan lies one such story, whispered among fans, speculated in endless threads, and hidden behind every carefully practiced smile. The marriage that never happened. It wasn't an ordinary tale. It was a symphony of glances, a storm of emotions, and a quiet tragedy wrapped in elegance. Two souls who once stood side by side under studio lights, only to drift apart under the shadow of unspoken words and unrealized promises. Their story began not with love, but with destiny. They met on set, under blinding stage lights, during the filming of a drama that would define an era. The first time their eyes met, something shifted, a pause in time, a flicker that would ignite a connection too deep to fake. Behind the cameras, their chemistry wasn't just performance, it was pure magic. Every movement, every word exchanged on screen, carried a weight that blurred the line between fiction and reality. At first, it was just admiration. Wang Yibo, with his quiet intensity and mysterious aura, saw in Xiao Zhan a warmth that disarmed him. Xiao Zhan, always gentle and careful, found in Yibo a spark that challenged his calm world. Together, they became unstoppable, an electric balance of fire and grace. But what the world saw as perfect teamwork was, behind the scenes, something more profound. Late-night rehearsals turned into long conversations. A shared script became shared laughter. When the crew packed up, they would linger just a little longer, talking about life, dreams, fears, and what it meant to live under constant scrutiny. Those nights weren't scripted. They were real. There was one moment fans never knew about, the night of the wrap party. The lights had dimmed, music filled the air, and everyone was celebrating the end of filming. Amid the noise and celebration, Yibo and Xiao Zhan found a quiet corner by the balcony. The city lights shimmered below them like liquid gold. Yibo turned to him and said softly, "Do you ever think about what comes after all this?" Xiao Zhan smiled, that familiar dimple catching the faint glow of neon. "After fame? After the cameras?" "No," Yibo replied, his voice a whisper. "After us." For a brief second, Xiao Zhan didn't respond. He simply looked at him, as if weighing the weight of the question. Then, he said something Yibo never forgot. "If there ever was an us, maybe it belongs to another time." That sentence lingered like smoke in the air. Beautiful, but impossible to hold. And yet, in the years that followed, rumors began to swirl. Fans noticed how their eyes still sought each other during award shows. How a simple smile between them could light up the stage. How, even when working on different projects, their interviews echoed with subtle mentions, small hints that something sacred still existed between them. But behind the curtains, something else was happening. The entertainment industry was merciless. Every whisper, every headline, every anonymous post became a weapon. Both men found themselves walking on thin ice, careful not to let emotions become scandal. There were contracts, sponsors, and reputations at stake. Still, they stayed in touch, quietly, secretly. Messages sent at midnight. Phone calls that ended in laughter and long silences. They became each other's invisible refuge in a world that demanded perfection. Then came the day that would change everything. It was supposed to be a simple reunion, a private dinner arranged by close friends. They hadn't seen each other for months due to conflicting schedules. The moment they met, time seemed to collapse. The same energy that once connected them on set came rushing back. Every word, every glance, every pause carried the same familiar rhythm. And then, Yibo said something unexpected. "Let's stop pretending we're fine. Let's make it real this time." Xiao Zhan froze. For a heartbeat, he almost said yes. But then he saw it, the reflection of countless flashing cameras in his mind. The noise, the headlines, the judgment. He thought about their careers, their fans, their families. "Yibo," he said softly, "some dreams aren't meant for the world to see." Yibo's smile faltered, but he nodded. He understood. That was the night the dream of marriage died before it was ever born. The world will never know how close they came. How Yibo once thought about buying a ring, how Xiao Zhan once wrote a letter he never sent. That letter, tucked inside a book on his shelf, began with "If the world were kinder," and ended with "I'd meet you at the altar." But fate wasn't kind. Years passed. They each found success in their own lanes, blockbuster roles, awards, endorsements, and millions of fans who adored them. Yet, every so often, in the middle of interviews or concerts, something would flicker in their eyes. A silent ache, a trace of what was once possible. There was one particular moment that sent fans into frenzy, the night of the gala. The two stars were invited to the same event after years apart. As cameras flashed and the crowd roared, Yibo turned slightly, his gaze meeting Xiao Zhan's across the hall. It was brief, barely a second, but enough to stare the entire internet into chaos. Some claimed they saw Yibo smile. Others swore Xiao Zhan's eyes glistened. No one knew what really happened in that fleeting exchange, but those who had followed their journey from the start knew. That single glance carried the weight of 1,000 unsaid vows. Behind the glitter and fame, behind the roaring crowds and flashing lights, there were two hearts that once dreamed of something pure, something private, something real. But the price of stardom is sacrifice, and in their world, love was the highest price of all. The marriage never happened. There were no rings, no vows, no whispered promises in front of witnesses. Yet, in the invisible realm of what could have been, their souls had already exchanged something deeper than any ceremony could offer. They loved in silence. They broke in silence. And they moved on, still carrying the ghost of what might have been. Some fans believe they still talk, hidden behind secret accounts or quiet messages. Others say they've let go entirely. But one thing remains certain. The connection between Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan transcends anything fame could create or destroy. Because some love stories don't need a wedding to be eternal. Some marriages never happen, yet they live on in the space between heartbeats, where two souls once touched and never truly parted. And maybe that's the most beautiful tragedy of all. Even now, when their names appear together on trending lists, fans can't help but wonder, what if? What if the world had been kinder, the cameras fewer, the stakes lower? What if the love they once guarded so fiercely could have seen the light of day? Perhaps somewhere, in another lifetime, under a softer sky and gentler rules, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan stand together, not as stars, but as two men who finally found peace in each other's arms. Until then, their love remains a secret melody, a song only they can hear. And for the rest of us, it's a reminder that the most unforgettable love stories aren't always the ones that end in marriage. Sometimes, they're the ones that almost did. The story didn't end with goodbye. It lingered, like a heartbeat you can't silence, echoing through time. Though the world moved on, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan's connection never truly faded. It became an invisible thread, binding two souls who once stood on the edge of something extraordinary. A love that might have changed everything, if only the world had allowed it. Long after that night of quiet heartbreak, whispers still followed them. Fans saw the tension, the spark, the ache that never quite disappeared. Even when they stood oceans apart, it was as if their energies still found a way to meet in the middle. And deep down, both men carried the ghost of the marriage that never happened, a dream that haunted them in moments of silence. It began again one evening in the heart of Beijing. The air was thick with rain, the kind that drenched the city in silver and washed away the noise of the world. Xiao Zhan sat by his window, the glow of his desk lamp illuminating a half-finished song. The lyrics spoke of loss, but the melody held something fragile, hope. His phone vibrated. A message appeared on the screen. "Yibo, still writing about me?" Xiao Zhan froze for a moment before a small smile tugged at his lips. He hadn't seen Yibo in months, maybe a year. And yet, here he was, appearing again, just like a memory that refused to fade. "Xiao Zhan, maybe I never stopped." There was a long pause before Yibo replied. "Yibo, then maybe I never stopped thinking about what we didn't finish." That message, it was enough to stir everything they had buried. That night, Yibo showed up at Xiao Zhan's door, soaked from the rain. No cameras, no bodyguards, no schedules. Just two men who once shared a secret too heavy to carry alone. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them said everything words couldn't. Finally, Xiao Zhan whispered, "You shouldn't have come." Yibo's gaze was steady, the kind that could melt walls. And yet, here I am. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Every movement, every glance, was charged. They talked for hours, about fame, fear, the cost of hiding what they felt. Xiao Zhan spoke of the pressure to appear untouchable, the loneliness that came with stardom. Yibo confessed how he had almost left the industry, how the emptiness between them had become unbearable. At some point, the conversation faded into silence. Yibo reached out, brushing his fingers against Xiao Zhan's hand, slowly, uncertainly. The room seemed to shrink, their breath mingling in the quiet. It was a moment too fragile for the world to see. Then, softly, Xiao Zhan said, "Do you ever think about what could have been? The ceremony, the vows, the quiet life away from all this?" Yibo's jaw tightened. "Every day." He paused, then added, "I saw a ring once. I almost bought it." The confession hung in the air like lightning before a storm. Xiao Zhan's eyes softened. He wanted to ask, "Why didn't you?" But he already knew the answer. Because love, in their world, wasn't freedom. It was a battlefield. Yet in that small, rain-soaked apartment, the impossible didn't feel so far away. They sat together until dawn. No promises, no explanations, just the quiet understanding that some bonds never truly break. When morning came, Yibo stood to leave. Before walking out, he turned back and said, "If the world ever changes, meet me where we first met." Xiao Zhan's heart clenched. "And if it doesn't?" Yibo smiled faintly. "Then I'll find you anyway." That was the last time they saw each other, for a while. Months turned into years. Careers exploded. Fame reached new heights. They became legends in their own right, their names echoing across continents. But sometimes, during interviews, a question would catch them off guard. A journalist once asked Xiao Zhan, "If you weren't an actor, what would you be doing right now?" He smiled gently and said, "Maybe waiting for someone." The world thought it was a poetic answer, but those who looked closely saw it, the flicker in his eyes, the shadow of a name he didn't say. On the other side of the world, Wang Yibo stood on a stage during a concert. As he spoke to his fans, he said something that left them breathless. Some things in life are meant to be finished, but some are meant to be remembered. The crowd screamed, thinking it was just another quote. But his eyes, those who knew his story, saw the truth in them. Then came the event that reignited everything. A global award show. Both men were nominated, both present in the same hall for the first time in years. When Xiao Zhan walked the red carpet, cameras flashed endlessly. But it was when Yibo appeared, dressed in sleek black, calm and radiant, that the energy shifted. Inside the venue, amid lights and applause, fate decided to tease them once more. Their seats were across the room, yet their eyes met, unplanned, unstoppable. It wasn't longing. It was something deeper, something ancient, as if the years apart had meant nothing. Later that night, as Xiao Zhan walked backstage, a familiar voice stopped him. Still waiting. He turned. Yibo stood there, half smiling, the same spark in his gaze. "Always," Xiao Zhan replied. For a moment, the world disappeared. They stood there. No cameras, no crowd, just two souls who had lived lifetimes in silence. And though they knew they could never reclaim what was lost, they also knew something else. The marriage may never have happened, but the love was eternal. That night, they didn't need words, rings, or vows, because the truth was already written in their hearts. They walked away once more, this time not in pain, but in peace, knowing that some stories aren't meant to end in forever. Some are meant to live in memory, glowing softly, untouchable by time. And as fans watched the videos later, catching those subtle glances and faint smiles, the internet exploded again. Theories, edits, songs, all blooming from the same wishful thought. Maybe someday, somewhere, they'll finally get the ending they deserve. Because even though the marriage never happened, What they shared was more powerful than any ceremony, an eternal promise, written between two hearts and sealed in silence. And that is how legends are born, not in what they show the world, but in what they choose to keep hidden. Rose, if this story moved your heart, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Sparkle, stay tuned for more emotional and mind-blowing stories about love, destiny, and the unseen bonds that tie the stars together. Dizzy, would you like me to now write the YouTube